Jacobs with running room right up the middle.
Jacobs
is on his way. The Raiders are going to win this game.
Lawrence throwing to the end zone. Marvin Jones. Yes. They call it a touchdown. On target with the throw. Is going for two. Lawrence in the shotgun. Looking left. Throws left. And it's caught. Zay Jones.
Unbelievable day of pro football. The Jags and the Raiders get it done toward the end. This is interesting to see. Daily Sports Podcast. News, narratives, takes, gambling. I am your host, Nick. And I hope you and yours had a happy Thanksgiving. And if you're not in the States, demand to your Congress, Parliament, or King, whomever, to celebrate American Thanksgiving because it is the best. Took a week off, and I am back now. And what a week of football. Holy shit. We do not have time to get into college today except to say that crazy stuff always happens. Teams are not as good anymore as they used to be. Texas A&M bought all the good players, and now every good team is missing like one or two guys, and it makes it really interesting, except for Texas A&M, who, despite buying all the good players, somehow sucks. But we will get into that at a later date. Over Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving Day slate was awesome, of course. Lions kept it close against the Bills. The Bills triumph. They're on their way to winning a Super Bowl, probably. Maybe. I don't know. Cowboys, I think the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. That's my take. And then at night, Kirk Cousins is for real. Much to the chagrin of all of us. God damn it. But now, on Sunday, it was excellent. The Raiders in overtime with a miracle win over Seattle. A 85-yard home run there by Josh Jacobs to win it in overtime. The Jaguars with a last-second drive with Trevor Lawrence, just was better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. He might just be a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. I don't know. He was yesterday. Marvin Jones played out of his mind. He's getting older. The Commanders win a close one against the Falcons. We had another overtime game in the Browns and the Bucks. But we begin. We'll go over all those narratives. We're going to begin today with Odell Beckham Jr. Odell was kicked off of a plane before it took off because allegedly he was either intoxicated or semi-responsive or unresponsive or something, and a flight attendant told him to leave. There were police back at the gate when he got off the gate. Was he drunk? Was he not drunk? Who knows? This is from ESPN. OBJ was removed from a flight in Miami International Airport on Sunday after police said the free agent wide receiver was in and out of consciousness and refused to leave the plane when asked. Odell Beckham's returnee has a different version of events. Let's read the entire thing. Earlier today, Odell Beckham Jr. boarded a morning flight in Miami without any problems. Space. The flight was delayed after boarding and prior to takeoff. Mr. Beckham fell asleep with his blanket over his head, which is his normal practice for long flights. He was awakened. A lawyer, huh? He was awakened and told that the plane was back at the gate and that he needed to get off the plane because he did not put his seatbelt on when asked. He responded that he was asleep and he would have put his seatbelt on at the time. He was informed that it was too late and that either he would get off the plane or everyone would have to get off the plane. The overzealous flight attendant insisted on removing everyone from the plane instead of simply allowing Mr. Beckham to fasten his seatbelt and proceed with the flight. At no time was Mr. Beckham disruptive or combative. He was willing to comply with the seatbelt requirement, but the flight attendant wanted to prove that he had the authority to have Mr. Beckham removed from the flight. The airline proceeded to send Mr. Beckham's luggage to Los Angeles without him. The incident was unnecessary. Space. That's 3. Sleeping on a plane should not be cause for removal from a flight. It just says should not be a cause, but I edited it to make this lawyer sound smarter. If they could wake him up when the flight returned to the gate, then they could have done the same thing to ask him to put his seatbelt on. Holy shit. Well, now he's ready to play this season. Perhaps they did try to wake him and he was wasted. We don't know. We may never know. This is a stupid story, but it is hilarious. Can't wait for this to be a thing. I can't wait for him to get back in the NFL and be like, what you doing, OBJ? What you doing, bud? What you doing? It's quarterback controversy day in the NFL. Mike White started for the Jets after Zach Wilson was benched. And not only was he benched, he was benched. They took him from the starter to the third string, meaning that he didn't suit up for the game. Mike White then went off. The Bears suck, of course, but he just threw the ball to the receivers. He did this last year. When Zach Wilson was hurt, Mike White came in and played his ass off. But then he Mike Whited all over the place because he sucks. You know, you've never heard of him. There's a reason. There's a reason you know him as a Jets backup and not as like a prospect or a college player. 22 for 28, 315 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Jets have some great players. That's the deal. They have really good players. Like their best running back is her. He probably was going to win Rookie of the Year. Garrett Wilson, the rookie wide receiver from Ohio State. Elijah Moore had 2 catches and a touchdown. They have good players. Throw the ball to the good players. Zach Wilson doesn't do it. Mike White does, but they haven't played a good team. Last year, I think it was the Colts that they beat. So, yeah, that was a bad team. Colts are good. No, false. So this is the story. Is Mike White going to be the starter all year long? I think, let's see who they have. They have the Vikings. No, Mike White will be pulled after getting crushed by the Vikings or at halftime against the Vikings. And then the Jets have the Lions and Jags. So they have Vikings, Bills, embarrassments. Then the Lions, Jags, also embarrassments, but not because of quarterback, just because you're like, oh, those teams are actually maybe better than we thought they were. They had a tough schedule to start the year. So that's what people are going to be talking about today. Is Mike White better than Zach Wilson? Yes. Is Mike White a franchise quarterback? No. There, I helped you. Other quarterback controversies. Taylor Heineke almost got hurt, which would have meant Carson Wentz was going to be back in the game, allegedly earlier than he was ready to be back from injury, but everyone's opinion was the same at the same time. Like, oh my God, if they put Wentz in, they're going to lose this game to Atlanta. Which is what you want from your starting quarterback that you traded for. It's like, oh, we can't have that guy in the game. Yuck. Chargers go for 2 at the end to beat the Cardinals. That's what the Jags did on their game-winning drive against the Ravens. Couple teams going for 2. The Niners beat the Saints 13-0 in a game nobody watched or gave a fuck about. Ugh, gross. The Bengals beat the Titans. That was the game of the day, probably. It was a good game. The Bengals are tough. I mean, I don't know. People think that they just accidentally went to the Super Bowl. They didn't. It was not accidental at all. The Dolphins annihilated the Texans in a game that was 30-0, I think, halfway through the second quarter. And then the Texans scored a couple touchdowns, but it was gross. The Panthers beat the Broncos. On the sideline, Mike Purcell, who went to the University of Wyoming, was a walk-on for the Broncos and well, actually Niners and then Broncos. He's put together a nice little career. This clip has 5 million views, so I'm going to put it up on the screen real quick. Okay, here's Purcell. And he's coming to the sideline after getting a stop. Let's watch this. Here it is. Look at him. He goes out of his way. He sees Russ. And Russ is saying something, and Mike shakes his head. And then Russ says something again, and Mike gets in his face. He's like, hey, shut the fuck up. Or I don't know what he says. This guy whose Twitter handle is @football. Actually, it's @BostonConnor. But his thing is football, which is not funny, but whatever. Stop fucking say let's ride, which, Connor, buddy, stop fucking say let's ride. Huh. Not a sentence. Well, if you can see Purcell, watch. He's walking the sideline. He hears, he's like, Russ, shut up. He's like, Russ, for real, shut up. And then Russ says something again. He's like, dude, I am literally not in the mood right now. And he gets in his face. Nathaniel Hackett has to be fired. I wonder if he's been fired yet, as we're recording this. Nathaniel Hackett. No Rodgers, no Hackett, and Broncos are failing. Hackett hasn't been fired yet. Yeah, it's crazy he hasn't been fired. I wonder if Russ knows that he's the problem. I doubt it. But that Purcell shit getting in his face was crazy, man. That was scary. That dude is big. He's a big boy. That is a big boy. Some data from the Thanksgiving Day games. The Lions versus the Bills was the biggest regular season game to kick off before 4 p.m. of all time, which is pretty sick. Let's look at the numbers. Where are the numbers? Yep. It was the most watched early Thanksgiving Day game ever on any network. It averaged 31.6 million viewers. That's 12% from last year's average. And the afternoon game was the largest regular season game ever in any time slot, which makes sense. Dallas and New York, huge markets. Both of them are good for like the first time ever. And they played on Thanksgiving. So it was a huge day. Football is not king. Football is God in these United States. It was one of the best. It was a bad slate. All the games were good. And then on Sunday night, of course, the Eagles did away with Aaron Rodgers. He left the game with a rib injury, allegedly. I told you this was going to happen. It was about time for him to fake an injury, and he did. Maybe he didn't fake it. We can't prove that. No reasonable person will believe that I'm alleging blah, 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 blah. Jordan Love came in and apparently looked pretty good. I didn't watch that. I went to bed because kicking off a game at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time should be a crime. Jordan Love was 6 for 9 for 113 and a touchdown. So, I don't know. You tell me. The Eagles defense is not looking great against teams that can run the ball. They don't look great against teams that can run the ball, but they improved to 10-1. They are by far the best team in the NFL. Statistically speaking, the only team close in their conference are the Vikings, who are 9-2, and they obliterated them, if you'll recall. All of the divisions are bad except for the NFC East, and I believe at this moment in time, the entire division, the NFC East, the entire division would be in the playoffs. So you'd have the division winners. Right now, the teams in the playoffs would be the Eagles, Niners, Vikings, Bucks, and then also the Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders. Nobody from any other division. The Seahawks are hanging around. I firmly believe they'll be close. The Lions and Packers are hanging around. The Packers probably needed to win. That means the Lions are the last hope from the NFC North. And the Falcons are hanging around, but they are probably out. They're about as far out of it as the Lions are right now at this point. Panthers too. But the Panthers beating the Broncos is really interesting because the Rams and the Broncos losing means that the Broncos and the Rams now have the 4th and 3rd pick of the NFL draft, respectively. The 1st overall pick goes to the Houston Texans. They are garbage, and they are obviously tanking. The 2nd overall pick right now, I believe, goes to the Steelers, which is hilarious. No, excuse me, the Bears have the 2nd overall pick. But the 3rd overall pick are for your Los Angeles Rams. It appears free agent acquisition Allen Robinson is going to be out for the year. Matthew Stafford has been sat down due to concussion issues, and their backup quarterback, Wolford, has been sat down because he's hurt also. They played someone named Bryce Perkins, who I do not remember at all in any way from any school ever. It seems like Bryce is playing in Texas. It seems like he should have gone to Baylor. I don't know. That's just because of Bryce Petty. I literally don't know. They're 3-8. The picks thing worked to win a Super Bowl, but it has fallen the fuck apart. And they played tough yesterday. A couple weeks ago, they didn't play tough. They played kind of tough yesterday. But if you're watching on this episode of Interesting to See on your screen, I will bring up this play by the Chiefs here. Let's watch this one. There it is. Look at the attempts to tackle here. Okay, so there's Kelsey. He's cutting back. Look at number 6. He's like, nah, I'm good, bro. Like that's a disaster, man. Look at that. One more time. Let's do it one more time. Look at number 6. He just like touches his shoulder. Like that was garbage. They're rolling over. What's really interesting about this to me is that all of these teams that are fighting for these playoff spots, because remember the Broncos pick goes to the Seahawks. Holy shit. They mortgaged their future and they're not going to get anything out of it. Right? That's what's wild. They haven't, because the Rams have cashed their check. They bought their Super Bowl on credit, and the credit's due. Ha, ha, ha. You'll hear that joke a lot. So they have the Seahawks. But then the other teams that are in that neighborhood for the pick, Raiders and Broncos, the Rams play them. The Rams play them this year. And then they also play the Packers. So here's how the Rams have left. They could lose out. Seahawks, Raiders, Packers in Green Bay without Matthew Stafford or any good players. Broncos, Chargers, Seahawks. Broncos-Rams is going to be the saddest Christmas Day experience of all fucking time. Best thing the Rams could do right now for the Detroit Lions is to lose. But the Broncos, holy shit. If you are a head coach in Canada, do you want that job? Do you want to deal with Russ right now? They are unbelievably bad. Despite having a bunch of good players, that's why they traded that Chubb guy away, because they were like, yeah, we need some picks back or something, dude. This is getting shitty. Russell Wilson, 19 for 35 for 142 yards. Oh, my God. Monday Night Football tonight is a snooze fest. I'll watch it, I guess. It's the Colts and the Steelers. Colts are good. All of a sudden, the Steelers are going to beat them. If the Steelers, who also have a high pick, I think they're 6 or something, if they could win as a Lions fan, that'd be great. I think they will. And they're not out of, they're basically out of the playoff race, but they're not out of contention, and that's not a team that rolls over. Thanks for hanging out with me back after the break. Definitely do a better job of doing episodes over Christmas holiday. I promise. Back and better than ever for Monday Night Football.